From the mafia boss who worked hand-in-hand with Osama bin Laden to the boss who is a key player in the ongoing opioid crisis in the US, mafia bosses continue to rule over the criminal underworld and the drug trade. In this video, I will be pulling back the curtains on the deadliest mafia bosses who are still in power. Michael Mancuso. Michael Mancuso, known to many as the Nose, became connected to organized crime back in the 1980s. He had affiliations to the East Harlem Purple Gang, a notorious group known for its involvement in drug trafficking and violent crimes. As Mancuso's reputation within the East Harlem Purple Gang grew, so did his ambitions. He began to forge connections with members of the Five Families, the dominant mafia organizations in New York City. Soon, Mancuso's reputation caught the attention of the Bonanno family's leadership, who saw potential in the young mobster. The Bonanno family at the time was undergoing a period of internal chaos and power struggles. The arrest and subsequent cooperation of former boss Joseph Massino had left an opening within the family, creating opportunities for ambitious individuals like Mancuso to rise through the ranks. In February 2006, Mancuso was arrested for his role in the murder of Randolph Pizzolo, a Bonanno associate. Despite his legal troubles, Mancuso remained a powerful figure in organized crime, even from prison. Surprisingly, Mancuso's incarceration did not hinder his rise within the ranks of the Bonanno family. By June 2013, while still serving time, he was appointed as the official boss of the family. Leading the Bonanno family from prison required a delicate balance of power and influence, which Mancuso achieved through his Bronx associates and underboss, Thomas Di Fiore. Up next is a boss whose loyalty to his family remained unshaken over the years: Domenico Casu. After Domenico Casu migrated from Palermo to the United States in search of a better life, it was only a matter of time before he joined the Gambino crime family. His initial involvement with the Gambino family was marked by his participation in heroin smuggling operations. In March 1982, Casu was convicted of heroin smuggling alongside 10 other men, including his uncle and cousin. Despite the conviction and subsequent 6-year sentence, Cefalo's ties to the Gambino family remained strong. After his release from prison, Cefalo became a made man and began to play a more important role in the family's operations. He became a key figure in the Sicilian Zip Crew, a faction within the Gambino family known for its strong ties to the Sicilian Mafia. In 1992, Casu was summoned by a New York grand jury to testify in an investigation. True to the Mafia's code, Casu refused to testify, resulting in an 18-month jail sentence for civil contempt. In 1996, he was convicted of criminal contempt and sentenced to 33 months in prison. Instead of hindering his rise, these convictions boosted his reputation as a loyal and reliable member of the Gambino family. By 2005, Cefalo's dedication and loyalty had earned him a promotion to the position of underboss, appointed by Jackie D'Amico, the street boss and a former ally of John Gotti. As underboss, Casu was responsible for overseeing the Sicilian faction of the Gambino family. In February 2008, he was indicted on charges of racketeering, conspiracy, and extortion as part of the Operation Old Bridge investigation into the Gambino family. Casu accepted a plea agreement, resulting in a 2-year prison sentence. In July 2011, Domenico Casu reached the highest height of power within the Gambino crime family, becoming its official boss. This next boss has spent many of his years in power behind bars. Liboro Bomo. Bellomo's initiation into the Genovese crime family came in 1977 when he became a member of the 116th Street crew led by Saverio Sammy Black Santora. By the late 1980s, he had climbed to the rank of capo, overseeing a crew of soldiers and associates based in the Bronx, New York. The 1990s marked a turning point in Bellomo's career, as he was identified as the acting boss of the Genovese crime family following the indictment of Vincent Gigante in the notorious Windows case. Following Gigante behind bars, Bellomo stepped into the role of acting boss. As Bellomo's influence expanded, so did the scrutiny from federal authorities. In 1996, he was indicted on Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act (RICO) charges, which included the murders of mobsters Ralph DeSimone and Antonio Di Lorenzo. Despite the serious nature of these charges, Bellomo's lawyers maintained his innocence. In February 1997, the prosecution dropped the murder charges against Bellomo due to insufficient evidence. Instead, they offered him a plea deal that involved pleading guilty to extorting payoffs from a construction union and a garbage hauling company. Bellomo accepted the deal and was sentenced to 10 years in prison. In July 2001, he was indicted on money laundering charges. Once again, Bellomo opted to plead guilty to lesser charges, which extended his prison sentence and pushed back his scheduled release date. In February 2006, Bellomo and over 30 Genovese family members were indicted on additional racketeering charges. Bellomo was specifically accused of ordering the 1998 murder of Ralph Coppola, the acting captain of his crew and a close associate associate. The government lacked concrete evidence to prove Bellomo's involvement in Coppola's murder, and as a result, they offered him a plea bargain in 2007. Bellomo accepted the deal, receiving an additional year in prison instead of the 4 years initially proposed. On December 1, 2008, Liboro Barney Bellomo was released from prison. Like Bellomo, this next boss remained in charge while in prison. Victor Amuso. Victor Amuso's journey into organized crime began in the late 1940s when he crossed paths with Anthony "Tony Ducks" Corallo, a powerful figure in the Gagliano crime family, which would later evolve into the Lucchese crime family. With Corallo as his mentor, Amuso began his criminal apprenticeship, serving as a bodyguard and chauffeur for Carmine Tramunti, another influential mobster. As the 1960s began, Muso's ruthlessness and loyalty caught the attention of Joseph "Crazy Joe" Gallo, a notorious enforcer for the Profaci crime family. Amuso joined Gallo's ranks as an enforcer, but this didn't last long. After the murder of Gallo in 1972, Amuso decided to defect to the Lucchese crime family. He aligned himself with the 19th Hole Crew, led by Christopher "Christy Tick" Fernari, a respected capo within the Lucchese ranks. This move marked a turning point in Amuso's criminal career as he transitioned from a foot soldier to a rising star within the Lucchese family hierarchy. In 1986, the Mafia Commission trial led to the convictions of several leaders of the five families, including Lucchese boss Anthony Corallo. Corallo then handpicked Amuso as his successor. In May 1990, Amuso was indicted as part of the Windows case investigation. He decided to go into hiding, but somehow managed to remain in control, issuing orders from the shadows. In July 1991, Amuso was apprehended by the FBI at a suburban mall outside Scranton, Pennsylvania. In a separate racketeering trial, Amuso was convicted of 54 charges, including 9 murders, and sentenced to life imprisonment in 1992. Despite his incarceration, Amuso's influence within the Lucchese family remained strong. From behind bars, he planned the family's operations and even appointed acting bosses. Up next is a boss who is a master in the game of deception: Seon Movich. In the 1980s, as the Soviet Union was about to collapse, Seon Movich saw an opportunity. He began his criminal career by exploiting the desperation of fellow Soviet Jews eager to emigrate to Israel and other countries. Movich positioned himself as a middleman, offering to sell their valuable possessions, such as jewelry and artwork, with the promise that he would hand over the proceeds. However, instead of fulfilling his promises, he pocketed the profits and made quite a fortune. Mogilevich's activities did not go unnoticed. He ended up on the wrong side of the law and served 2 prison terms for currency dealing offenses. By the late 1980s, he had established himself as a key money laundering contact for the Solntsevskaya Bratva, one of the most powerful criminal organizations in Russia. In the early 1990s, Mogilevich moved to Hungary, where he invested in various enterprises, including the purchase of a local armament factory named Army Co-op, a factory that produced anti-aircraft guns. He also ventured into legitimate businesses, using them as fronts for money laundering and other illicit activities. In 1997 and 1998, Canadian journalists uncovered that Mogilevich and his associates were behind YBM Magnex International Inc., a public company trading on the Toronto Stock Exchange. The company, which had been valued at $1 billion, was revealed to be a front for money laundering and other illicit activities. In May 1998, the FBI, alongside several other U.S. government agencies, raided YBM's headquarters in Newtown, Pennsylvania. Despite the mounting evidence against him, Mogilevich proved to be a master of evasion. In 2003, the United States Federal Bureau of Investigation placed Mogilevich on its wanted list for his role in defrauding investors in YBM Magnex International Inc. In October 2009, he was named the 494th fugitive to be placed on the FBI's 10 most wanted list. This next boss is famous for having ties to Osama bin Laden. Dawood Ibrahim. Dawood Ibrahim's criminal history began as a teenager. He dropped out of high school and began engaging in petty crimes such as fraud, theft, and robbery. It was during this time that he crossed paths with Bashu Dada, a local gangster who was part of an organized crime syndicate. Under Bashu's influence, Dawood learned the ropes of the underworld. By the late 1970s, Dawood and his elder brother, Shabir Ibrahim Kaskar, formed a gang that would eventually evolve into the infamous D Company. The duo engaged in activities such as gold smuggling, extortion, and real estate dealing. However, tragedy struck when Shabir was killed by the rival Pathan gang, leaving Dawood as the sole leader of their gang. Dawood expanded D Company's operations, transforming it into a sophisticated and ruthless syndicate. The gang's influence spread beyond Mumbai, reaching into the Middle East and Africa. By the early 1990s, D Company boasted over 5,000 members. Dawood's rise to power involved forging connections with influential figures in the underworld, as well as corrupt officials who turned a blind eye to his activities. In 1986, Dawood Dawood fled India for Dubai following the murder of Samad Khan, for which he was wanted by the Mumbai police. From Dubai, he managed a vast network of illegal enterprises, including drug trafficking, money laundering, and arms smuggling. He soon dabbled into the world of terrorism. His syndicate's smuggling routes were reportedly shared with terrorist organizations like Al-Qaeda, and he was believed to have had contacts with Osama bin Laden. In 1993, Dawood was named as the mastermind behind the Bombay bombings. As the evidence mounted against Dawood, the Indian government intensified its efforts to bring him to justice. However, by this time, Dawood had already fled to Karachi, Pakistan, where he reportedly continued to operate without fear. This next boss escaped from prison in a daring manner: Nino Guerrero. Nino Guerrero started his criminal career by attacking police officers and participating in small-scale drug trafficking, which soon caught the attention of law enforcement. In September 2005, he took things further by killing an Aragua police officer, making himself a clear target for the authorities. By this time, the Tren de Aragua, a criminal organization known for kidnapping, extortion, and bribery, was gaining notoriety, and Guerrero was becoming an important part of its operations. In 2010, Nino was captured while dealing in stolen goods and trafficking drugs in his hometown of Maracay. He was incarcerated in the Aragua Penitentiary, also known as Tocaron. However, for Guerrero, prison was not the end, but rather a new chapter in his life of crime. Despite being behind bars, Guerrero continued to plan and oversee the expansion of the Tren de Aragua. The organization thrived under his leadership, extending its reach across Venezuela and beyond. By 2012, Guerrero had managed to escape from Tocaron. However, his freedom was short-lived. In June 2013, he was recaptured in Barquisimeto, Lara State, where he had been involved in a series of home robberies. Even after his recapture, Guerrero's influence remained strong. In 2015, he made a bold appearance at a party in Maracay. There, he confirmed he was the leader of the Tren de Aragua and promised better living conditions for the local people. By 2016, Guerrero faced multiple charges, including murder, robbery, and drug trafficking. In February 2018, he accepted these charges and was sentenced to 17 years in prison. This next boss was born into a powerful crime family: Matthew Guglielmi. Matthew Louis Guglielmi Jr. began his criminal career in the 1980s. In 1984, he and his father were arrested for hijacking a truckload of Canadian whiskey. However, the case was mysteriously dropped, leaving many to speculate that this development may have been as a result of the influence and connections that the Guglielmi family possessed. As the decade progressed, the Patriarca crime family got caught up in an internal factional war. In 1989, Guglielmi inherited the rackets previously overseen by the murdered underboss, William Grasso. Even after attracting the attention of law enforcement, Guglielmi kept running his criminal operations, managing gambling and loan sharking as a leader in the Patriarca family. In April 2002, the Federal Bureau of Investigation launched an ambitious probe into the Rhode Island construction industry. This well-planned sting operation was designed to lure in key figures within the organized crime world, and Guglielmi was at the top of their list. At the time, Guglielmi held the position of steward for the Laborers International Union of North America Local 271. His role within the union provided him the opportunity to exploit the construction industry for the Patriarca family's benefit. In January 2005, Guglielmi and two associates were arrested in Johnston on unrelated drug charges. In March that year, Guglielmi signed a plea agreement, admitting to conspiring to distribute more than 5 kilograms of cocaine. Later that year, he was sentenced to 11 years in prison. Up next is a boss who kept rising through the ranks even while behind bars: Kenichi Shinoda. In 1962, Kenichi Shinoda took his first steps into the Yakuza lifestyle by joining the Hirota Gumi, a Nagoya-based affiliate of the Yamaguchi Gumi. It was here that he learned the intricacies of Yakuza operations, from extortion and gambling to the powerful web of alliances and rivalries that defined the organization. His first major brush with the law came in the early 1970s when he was convicted of murdering a rival Yakuza boss with a katana, a crime that resulted in a 13-year prison sentence. This conviction didn't hurt his standing in the Yakuza. In fact, it boosted his reputation as a ruthless leader who wouldn't hesitate to take extreme steps to protect his power and authority. Upon his release, Shinoda resumed his activities with renewed determination, quickly re-establishing his position within the Yamaguchi Gumi and continuing to expand the organization's influence. However, the Hirota Gumi was disbanded in the early 1980s. Undeterred by the dissolution of his initial group, Shinoda, along with his long-term partner Kiyoshi Takayama, co-founded the Kodokai in 1984. This new group replaced the Hirota Gumi and quickly grew into a powerful branch of the Yamaguchi Gumi. With their strategic planning and ruthless efficiency, the duo expanded the group's influence to 18 prefectures, even reaching the usually restricted Kanto region. In July 2005, Kenichi Shinoda was appointed as the 6th Kumicho of the Yamaguchi Gumi, taking control of the 40,000-strong organization. His appointment marked a significant shift in the leadership of the Yamaguchi Gumi, as he became the first Kumicho not to hail from the Kansai region. Up next is one of the world's most elusive drug lords, Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes. Nemesio Ruben Oseguera Cervantes, better known as El Mencho, began his criminal career when he migrated to the United States in the 1980s. He was arrested multiple times for drug-related offenses, including heroin trafficking, which eventually led to his deportation back to Mexico. He soon became involved with the Milenio Cartel, a powerful criminal organization at the time. The Milenio Cartel, however, was not immune to the chaos that often plagues criminal organizations. The arrests and deaths of key figures within the cartel created a power vacuum. Seizing the opportunity, El Mencho took control of the remnants of the Milenio Cartel and rebranded it as the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, or CJNG. Under El Mencho's leadership, the CJNG greatly expanded its operations. The cartel used brutal and effective tactics, marked by violent clashes with rival groups and Mexican authorities to establish their control. The manhunt for El Mencho began in earnest in 2012. Both Mexican and U.S. authorities considered him a high-priority target. The charges against him were extensive, including drug trafficking, organized crime, and illegal possession of firearms, making him one of the most wanted criminals in the world. Despite the many charges against him, El Mencho has managed to escape capture for decades, and many believe this is because he is protected by a network of armed guards and loyal associates. This next boss landed in jail for murder: Lorenzo Manino. Lorenzo Manino started his criminal career by trafficking drugs with the Gambino crime family, and it was only a matter of time before he began to rise through the ranks. In 1988, he was caught up in a conspiracy to murder Francesco Oliveri, a crime that would haunt him for years to come. What is known about the incident is that Oliveri had become a liability to the Gambino family, and his elimination was deemed necessary to protect the family's interests. The conspiracy to murder Oliveri eventually caught the attention of law enforcement, leading to a high-profile trial in 1993. Manino, along with co-defendants John Gambino, Joseph Gambino, and Matteo Romano, faced charges related to the murder and their involvement in a racketeering enterprise. In 1994, Manino pleaded guilty to charges of drug trafficking and conspiracy to murder Francesco Oliveri and received a 15-year prison sentence. Following his release from prison in 2004, Manino re-entered the world of organized crime. Domenico Casu, a long-standing member of the Gambino family, recognized Manino's potential and appointed him as his front boss. As front boss, Manino was responsible for overseeing the day-to-day operations of the family. Up next is a boss who carried out a bribery scheme during the 2002 Olympics: Alimjan Toktonov. In the late 1980s, Alimjan Toktonov moved to Germany, where he hoped to find new opportunities. It was during this time that he acquired Israeli citizenship, and soon there were allegations linking him to international arms sales involving the Western Group of Forces and an Arab country. In the early 1990s, Toktonov found himself in Paris, where he was allegedly engaging in illegal business deals and smuggling operations. His activities did not go unnoticed, and he soon came under the scrutiny of French authorities. Reports soon emerged linking him to the Russian mafia, especially to the infamous Georgian mobster Tariel Oniani. In 2002, Toktonov was accused of planning and executing a bribery scheme involving figure skating judges at the Winter Olympics. He was arrested in Italy at the request of the United States, but the Italian court ultimately rejected the extradition bid, allowing him to return to Russia. Things took a dark turn for Toktonov in 2013, when the FBI launched an extensive investigation into his alleged criminal activities. The FBI's investigation focused on an illegal gambling ring that Toktonov allegedly ran, a global operation involving millions of dollars. As the investigation unfolded, the FBI gathered evidence that implicated Toktonov and several other high-profile individuals. The federal grand jury indictment named over 30 people, including Vadim Trincher, Molly Bloom, and Heli Namad. These individuals were accused of participating in the illegal gambling operation, with Toktonov allegedly receiving more than $12 million from the Taiwan Chick Trincher organization between December 2011 and February 2013. The United States Department of State offered a $4 million reward for information leading to his arrest. However, Toktonov continues to live openly in Russia, seemingly unfazed by the global manhunt. This next boss was groomed by his father to be a ruthless leader. Even Archivaldo Guzman Salazar, Ivan Archivaldo Guzman Salazar was born into a life of organized crime. His father, Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, was the leader of the infamous Sinaloa cartel until his extradition to the United States in 2017. Alongside his brother Jesus Alfredo Guzman Salazar and half-brothers Ovidio Guzman Lopez and Joaquin Guzman Lopez, Ivan was introduced to the inner workings of the cartel by his father and his co-leader, Ismael El Mayo Zambada Garcia. By the time he reached adulthood, Ivan was already a key player in the cartel's operations. In April 2004, he was allegedly involved in the murder of Canadian exchange student Kristen Dayel and her Mexican companion, Cesar Augusto Pulido Mendoza. In February 2005, the Zapopan municipal police officers observed a man being violently ejected from a moving vehicle. The police pursued the vehicle, determined to arrest those responsible for the shocking incident. The chase resulted in the detention of 5 individuals, including Ivan Archivaldo Guzman Salazar, charged with money laundering. Ivan was imprisoned in the notorious Federal Social Readaptation Center, No. 1, La Palma, a facility known for housing some of Mexico's most dangerous criminals. In early June 2005, El Chapo posted a $55,000 bail bond, securing his son's release. This brief taste of freedom was short-lived because federal police quickly rearrested Ivan. In 2008, he was found guilty of money laundering and sentenced to 5 years in prison. However, Ivan successfully appealed the conviction, and later that year, he was released from prison, a free man once again. Up next is a boss who has massively contributed to the ongoing opioid crisis in the U.S., Fat Yip. Fat Yip, also known by his alias Ye Chuan Fei, is the alleged mastermind of one of the largest anabolic steroid and fentanyl precursor distribution networks in the world. His criminal enterprise, the Yuancheng Group, is a chemical manufacturing company that has been implicated in the production and distribution of illegal substances on a massive scale. The Yuancheng Group, under Yip's leadership, is believed to have generated approximately $280 million from the sale of anabolic steroids alone. Of this staggering amount, $55 million worth of steroids were allegedly shipped to the United States over a 5-year period. The group also dealt in fentanyl precursors, chemicals that are crucial in the production of the potent synthetic opioid fentanyl. This substance has been a significant contributor to the opioid crisis, causing countless overdoses and deaths. In October 2015, Yip himself attended a trade show in the United States, accompanied by his company's vice president and a sales manager. During this visit, they reportedly met with potential customers, negotiating transactions involving more than 100 kilograms of anabolic steroids. The group allegedly shipped their contraband from major Chinese ports like Shanghai and Hong Kong to destinations worldwide, including 84 foreign countries and all 50 U.S. states. The scale and audacity of Fat Yip's operations have made him a high-priority target for law enforcement agencies around the world. The U.S. Department of State has offered a reward of up to $5 million for information leading to his arrest and conviction. Despite the unsealing of his indictment in March 2021, Yip remains at large, believed to be residing in Wuhan City, Hubei Province, China. Like Yip, this next boss has managed to remain at large despite the $5 million bounty on his head. Fausto Isidro Mesa Flores. Fausto Isidro Mesa Flores took his first steps into the world of organized crime in the 1990s by joining the Juarez cartel. Under the mentorship of the notorious Amado Carrillo Fuentes, known as the Lord of the Skies, Mesa Flores developed his skills and learned the intricacies of the drug trade. The death of Carrillo Fuentes in 1997, due to complications from plastic surgery, marked a turning point in Mesa Flores' career. With the Juarez cartel in disarray following the loss of its leader, Mesa Flores, along with several other traffickers, decided to defect to the Beltran Leyva cartel. Within the Beltran Leyva cartel, Mesa Flores demonstrated his capabilities as a skilled hitman. When Arturo Beltran Leyva, the leader of the cartel, was killed by the Mexican military in December 2009, many members of the organization chose to abandon ship. They joined forces with Edgar Valdez Villarreal, known as La Barbie, to form an independent criminal group. Mesa Flores, however, remained steadfast in his allegiance to the Beltran Leyva brothers. He became a trusted lieutenant and eventually the leader of Los Mazatlecos, a faction within the cartel. Under his leadership, Los Mazatlecos became a powerful force, responsible for smuggling large quantities of methamphetamine, heroin, marijuana, and cocaine across Mexico and into the United States. The ongoing search for Mesa Flores has been a priority for law enforcement agencies in both Mexico and the United States. He is a fugitive wanted on drug trafficking charges, and the FBI is offering a $5 million bounty for information leading to his capture. Despite numerous attempts to apprehend him, Mesa Flores has managed to evade capture for years. Up next is a gang leader that has been declared wanted by the FBI, Julian Andoni Archiga Carrillas. Born in the bustling city of San Pedro Sula in February 1982, Julian Andoni Archaga Carayas, also known by his aliases Porky and Alexander Mendoza, rose from being a nobody to becoming a formidable leader of the infamous MS-13 gang. Archaga Carayas is alleged to have been in charge of a sophisticated network of criminal activities, including drug trafficking, extortion, and murder. Under his command, the gang is believed to have engaged in the importation of cocaine and the distribution of firearms, fueling violence and instability in communities across both nations. Archaga Carayas was arrested in 2015 on charges of money laundering and illicit association. However, his time in custody was short-lived. In February 2020, Archaga Carayas escaped from prison. On that fateful day, he was scheduled to attend a court hearing in the city of El Progreso, located 28 kilometers from San Pedro Sula. As the prison van arrived at the courthouse, things got out of hand. An MS-13 squad, disguised in military police uniforms, stormed the building and opened fire. Security footage captured two groups of men arriving at the scene. The first group escorted a decoy prisoner in handcuffs, while the second group concealed weapons and ammunition under a black tunic. In the ensuing confusion, Archaga Carayas slipped away. In the wake of his escape, the search for Archaga Carayas intensified. Honduran authorities, in collaboration with international partners, launched a massive manhunt to recapture the fugitive. The FBI added him to their 10 most wanted fugitives list, offering a reward of up to $100,000 for information leading to his capture. Up next is a boss who presented himself as Robin Hood to the people in his town, Alexis Alexander Acevedo. Alexis Alexander Acevedo's entry into the criminal underworld started with petty theft and small-time drug dealings. However, with time, he expanded his operations. He began to assemble a small group of loyal followers who were involved in kidnappings and robberies, targeting affluent individuals and businesses in and around Caracas. One of the key factors that contributed to Alexis's rise was his ability to exploit the socio-political landscape of Petare. The neighborhood, like many others in Venezuela, was plagued by poverty, unemployment, and a lack of basic services. Alexis capitalized on these conditions by positioning himself as a benefactor to the community. He provided financial assistance to struggling families, distributed food and supplies, and even mediated disputes among residents. This Robin Hood-like persona endeared him to many locals, who viewed him as a protector rather than a criminal. His growing influence was further increased by his connections with local politicians and law enforcement officials. These relationships provided Alexis with a degree of protection from legal consequences, allowing him to operate without fear. In return, Alexis offered his support to these officials, ensuring their continued power and influence in the region. By 2017, Alexis had firmly established himself as the undisputed leader of the Jose Felix Ribas neighborhood. Despite numerous attempts by rival gangs and law enforcement to dethrone him, Alexis remains unchallenged, his power and influence growing with each passing day. These mafia bosses continue to carry out their criminal operations till date, regardless of the government's efforts to put an end to organized crime. Check out any of our other videos by clicking the cards on your screen.